Having spent over 40 years working in the wealth services industry and working with hundreds of business owners, one thing is consistently stuck out as a problem when business owners are looking to sell. And that is, how do I maximize the value of my life's work? Well, with me today is Jeffrey Feldberg. And Jeffrey is not only an expert in having been through sales, but he's also created a business that can help business owners not make the mistakes that they might otherwise make and learn the proper things that you need to be aware of, especially since you're probably only going to sell one business in your lifetime. Making sure you know everything that you should is really important. So, Jeffrey, I'm excited to have you here today. Maybe let's start out with you just giving us a little background on yourself, and then I've got a number of questions I'd like to ask you for our listening audience.
Well, absolutely, and terrific. And Bryan, firstly, before we get going with that, a heartfelt thank you for putting this all together. And I have to share, I'm fortunate as an advisor myself. I work with many advisors, but I can count on my firsthand the number of advisors like yourself as a thought leader, someone who's looking at areas that don't directly do what you do, but does impact the clients. And I really honor you on that, salute you for doing that, because it really sets you apart from the crowd, and much appreciated for today. So very quickly, let me share the origin story, the story behind the story, if you will. I've been an entrepreneur through and through, grew up always dreaming of the day I'd have my own business. And right after my MBA program, I jumped into my own business. It was an e-learning company. This is back in the mid-90s when the internet was still considered a fad. Imagine that. And it was no money, no experience, no team, living in the parents' attic, typical entrepreneurial story. But I welcomed a new best friend into my life that I didn't expect, otherwise known as failure. I was failing forward each and every day, Bryan. And you and I'm laughing about this now. I assure you, back in the day, it wasn't laughter, it was tears. It was a challenging time. But like many business owners, my grit, my passion kept me in the game long enough. And Embanet went from zero to hero, started to become successful, had that proverbial knock at the door, and very sophisticated and smart buyer who ended up giving a 7-figure offer. Now, to friends and family, they were rejoicing. Jeffrey, you can move out of the parents' attic. Look at this. It was all worth the while. And to everyone's surprise, particularly the buyers, I said no to the 7-figure offer, yes to mastering the art and science of a liquidity event. And Bryan, I'll use those two fancy words, liquidity event, just because they really cover the whole spectrum. If I'm having a full exit, a partial exit, maybe I'm raising capital, maybe I'm doing a reverse takeover, perhaps I'm going public, the one thing they all have in common is the higher the value of the business, the enterprise value, the better off it's going to be. And so 2 years later, after I put together this very special system based on speaking to anyone and everyone in M&A while running my business full time, different buyer, different offer, said yes to a 9-figure offer. And quite openly, Bryan, that's where the story should have ended. I shouldn't even be having this conversation with you. I should be on a beach somewhere, having a pina colada, all decked out in my beach wear. But what happened next, life is funny, truth is stranger than fiction. I never would have planned it or thought about it. Business owners started reaching out, hey, Jeffrey, can you help me? And I said, well, I don't know if I really can, but let me find some resources for you. And Bryan, I got to tell you, I looked, didn't really find anything other than many so-called systems charging a lot of money, but not having the experience. And almost reluctantly, myself and my business partner, Steve Wells, who's out of Winter Park, Florida, we said, let's really pay this forward. And that began our journey of what we now call, some more fancy words for you, the Deep Wealth Experience. It's the 90-day Deep Wealth Experience, our 9-step roadmap of preparation, which, by the way, wasn't 9 steps for my liquidity event. We reverse engineered some of the failures and put them into the system. And that's what we do today, because to your point earlier, Bryan, you're spot on with what you're saying. Someone's life's work is in the business. Up to 90% of business owners, and I put myself in that camp before my liquidity event, they have the golden handcuffs. Their wealth is locked into the business. And so that means that they have to have a successful liquidity event. And so far, so good. Sounds reasonable until you hear the statistics, and they are really something else. Up to 90% of liquidity events fail. And of the, I'll use quotations, successful liquidity events, business owners are leaving 50% to over 100% of the deal value in the buyer's pocket. Case in point is myself. If I would have said yes to that 7-figure offer, all those zeros in the 9-figure offer, I would have been leaving to the buyer. That's my life's work. I had created that. I didn't know it was there. And that's what we do today.
Yeah, and I think that's why I kind of love the collaboration we've been able to create, because you've been there, you've experienced it, you've had the success, you've had the failures, and and have kind of, like you said, reverse engineered all of the proper things that you might not have done originally, but now know if I follow these key steps, these are the success criteria to maximize what you might have worked 30 or 40 years trying to create. And since you only get one shot at it, why not make it, the most effective system that you possibly can. So this has been great. And we just want to deliver some extra value to our clients, because lots of people do have businesses, and at some point they want to retire. So, learning these techniques before you decide to sell your business is really important. So what I'd like to do is I just kind of created a list of, it was like 6 questions that I continually hear from business owners. And I think just you and I maybe having a conversation, these 6 questions will probably answer 85-90% of some of the things that people have thought about if they were getting close to maybe selling their business, or at least considering it. So if you're okay with that, why don't we start with that? And I think the first one, and you briefly mentioned some statistics, but is there any other statistics on what happens during liquidity events that you hadn't mentioned that would be helpful to the audience?
Absolutely. And I'll share, let's talk about the root cause about this. So as everyone heard earlier, up to 90% of liquidity events fail. And many times the business owners are leaving the 50% to 100% of the deal value in the buyer's pocket. So we asked the question, why? Because to create a successful business, that's not luck. That is skill, and that's time, and that's effort. And really, when you get to the root cause, the one common theme is a fatal mistake that most business owners make, and that is the belief. And belief, we got to stop believing. We have to get to knowing. To your point, Bryan, you have one chance to get it right. You absolutely want to make it count. You can't believe you have the best deal. You have to know you have the best deal. And so the belief that most business owners make, to their detriment, is the skills that built the business are the same ones to sell it. And I'm going to ask both yourself as well as everyone watching a rhetorical question, a little bit of a loaded rhetorical question, but it's everything with the truth. And that is, how the heck can you master something you've never done before? Because the skills to build a business are definitely not the skills to sell a business. And let's keep in mind, buyers do it all day long. They are smart and sophisticated. They've seen everything. You're going, they're already coming back, and they have really everything in their arsenal to, like everyone else, no fault of their own. They're in business to be in business, like we're in business to be in business. They want to get the best absolute deal. Don't we all? Whether it's business or personal, we want to get the best deal. Who doesn't like a terrific deal? We all love terrific deals. However, when it comes to our financial freedom, and we just show up, which is what most business owners do, we really gamble with our future. And that's really the root cause. It's lack of preparation. And I'll tie it all back together. Case in point is the first offer that I had, the 7-figure offer that I had. I showed up, I wasn't prepared. I was like most business owners. Well, someone's at the door, and we'll talk about this, about unsolicited offers. Maybe a little bit of a spoiler alert is an unsolicited offer. It's the worst offer. You don't want to do that. We can talk more about that a little bit later on.
Yeah, that is one of my questions later. So great.
And I'll round it out simply by saying, people always ask, okay, Jeffrey, 7 figures to 9 figures. So what, were you buying companies? What were you doing to get that kind of increase in value? And it's a really boring answer. And a little bit of an interesting, it's an enigma, because from the outside looking in, we weren't buying businesses. Bryan, I'll share with you, it was the same business, the same people, the same service. And so that begs the question, okay, well, what's that secret sauce from 7 figures to 9 figures? And here's the answer. It's a boring answer. It's one word, but we're going to stick with the truth. And the answer is preparation. By the time we showed up for the second time around, we were prepared. And preparation, I have a secret for everyone. We talk about the 9-step roadmap of preparation. We could just as easily remove the word preparation and put the word growth, because the strategies of preparation are the same as growth. So while you're preparing for your liquidity event, you're growing your business. It's becoming more profitable. It's becoming larger, becoming better. And as I like to say, keep a thriving and profitable business forever or sell it tomorrow. Once you're prepared, the choice is yours, and they are both terrific choices.
Yeah. And that reminds me of an interesting book. There's a book called Who Not How by Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy about, having people who are already experts in some other field help you get to where you want to go versus you learning how to do it. They can get you there quicker. They can get better results. They can, in your particular case, go from 7 figures to 9 figures.